Birch, your thoughts on the squad and the 18-15 split?
Look at I think, look, at a week ago we thought we was going to be a 19-14, wasn't it? But as the week went on, it looked more likely he was going to go 18-15. I think that's great for Stuart McCluskey, and I think it would have been very hard. He would have been the most unlucky loser if he had missed out. I think he can afford to do that because, Ty Byrne, Ryan Baird, and at a push, Ian Henderson can play at 6, and that gives him a little bit of flexibility. Look, it's a good squad, and while it's gut wrenching and it's very hard on Cian Healy, I think we've gone incredibly well to get to this stage, to be only really missing him. I know there's doubts about Ronan Kelleher, Dan Sheehan, Jack Cohn, etc., but we trust that that they're going to be okay, and to get to that stage without any real first choice player being injured is a great return from a preseason and 3.5 games. If you include the Portuguese kid out as a half a game, we've done incredibly well. Plus the fact that they've been doing a lot of contact in training, etc. So that's great. I mean, we're in a good position. Bit of a downer, the performance on at the weekend, but I think it's no harm. I think it'll be fine. I think it does show the importance of our leaders and our key players. And not taking anything away, the conditions were brutal. Murray was down there. The fact he told the squad effectively before the match may have had a little bit of effect on them. I don't know psychologically, but we didn't seem to be as ready for contact maybe as we had been. And also the Samoans, have some very good players and put in a good shift. But I think that now with Sexton back in tow, and the World Cup squad named 2 weeks to Romania, which again will be an easier game than Samoa, will give us a chance to get some momentum. And yeah, it's a good squad. It's a very good squad, and we're in a good place. In terms of depth, I don't think we have the same depth as France or South Africa, and South Africa showed that at the weekend with obviously the impact their bench had. But it is a very good squad, but we are still reliant on probably that 23 rather than from 23 to 33. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of it. In fairness, and everything you can to build that depth, I think we are reliant on those frontliners, to be honest.
And that's where Cian Healy is such a loss, Birch. Obviously, personally for him, everybody is gutted, but actually within the context of this Ireland squad and having to dip into that depth chart, Healy is such an important player for Ireland. Still, he has that bench role now, but he closes out games. He comes on, he locks down the set piece.
Yeah,
there is a little bit of a drop off to Jeremy Loughman, and that is not to sound disrespectful towards Loughman. He'd probably accept that himself. Like, Healy's just so seasoned. He's a better scrummager. Loughman offers things, by the way, around the park that can suit Ireland and that Healy doesn't. But when you consider how Farrell uses that role, that's where Healy's absence will be felt in this tournament. There's no two ways about it.
Massively. I think it's the most glaring position in Irish rugby that we haven't created a really strong succession plan and depth chart. So, like, if you think about it, Porter was a tight head that we moved back across, right, to facilitate, and he's a top end loose head, and we're very lucky to have him there. Killer is an outstanding rugby player, but age profile wise, himself and Healy are both towards the end of their career going into this. And then below that, if you look, there's definitely a gap. There's a significant drop down at that top end Champions Cup semi-final, final international rugby against a tier 1 country. There's a significant gap. Can Loughman step up? Hopefully he can. At the moment, you'd be worried, to be fair, against a top team, that he would be good enough to do it at this moment. Particularly around the scrummaging wise, as a ball player, I think he's made big strides. And it's interesting. So the one that they're probably looking at is Paddy McCarthy, Joe McCarthy's brother, who was a tight end in school. I believe that he now sees his future, or they see his future, as a loose head, and he may pass them all out. And for the next World Cup cycle, he may be the backup to Andrew Porter. But that is a worry. But look, if Killer's okay and Andrew Porter's okay, we'll be fine. I have no worries about them. And what a moment for Lockman. He's told on whatever Friday morning he's not going, or Thursday, and then he's now on it and will play. He'll get game time in the World Cup. But for me, that is it is a significant drop down from Healy, to be fair.
And it sounds as though Kilcoyne is good to go, Murray, from what we've heard.
The updates are positive on all those guys who've been carrying niggles. We haven't got a definitive schedule or timeline on Sheehan and when they actually expect or hope he'll be back, but you would imagine they'll be pushing for that South Africa game and not risking anything before that because of his importance to the side. Kilcoyne, Conan, Kelleher, by all accounts, could have played at a push, and Earls could have played at a push last weekend if it was a bigger game. So that's clearing. But I'd agree with the concern, because when you look at the other contenders, in particular France and South Africa, like one of them can bring a 7-1 bench and bring on a pack that's arguably as strong, in some instances maybe even stronger than the one that started. France can kind of do something similar. Even when they played their second string pack against Scotland, particularly in the first half, they just bashed and bullied them. And that is a differentiator. I agree with Birch on that cause for concern. I think Ireland everyone needs luck in a World Cup, but Ireland need just a little bit more luck than France and South Africa in particular on the injury front.
We might be accused of peddling a little bit of doom and gloom at what should be an exciting point of the autumn for Irish rugby fans, Birch. So let me ask you about Samoa and the degree to which you feel we can park that game and move on with our lives versus the degree to which it might have concerned you or it might have sapped a small bit of Ireland's momentum going into this tournament.
Yeah, look, I have to give them massive credit. So they're very powerful. They showed a lot of improvement. I watched a video of their game against the Babas in Brive last week, and they were poor enough, to be fair. They were ill-disciplined. But I just thought they got the game plan right. They didn't overplay. They went to the air quite regularly. Decent kicks from Sapawanga, in particular, more so than kicking off 9. And their kick chase was good and their work in the air was good. So it made it very difficult for people like Jimmy O'Brien, who are normally really sound under the high ball, to get it. And then, they were getting scrums further up the field. They were able to win scrum penalties. They were able to disrupt our line out, although, to be honest, a lot of that was our own doing, or so our line out wasn't functioning. So I actually felt sorry for our halfbacks, because it looked like they weren't really controlling the game or getting us into our attacking shape. But we had such little possession. We had such poor set piece possession. We weren't able to deal with the kicks that were coming onto us, so we couldn't go back at them in terms of counterattack. And then we would build a few phases, and there'd be a ball lost in contact through a big hit or poor ball protection. So it was a very kind of stop-start affair. I don't know what it felt like for Murray there, but for me, I felt Crowley was difficult for him to be. It was difficult to be critical of him because he wasn't getting a lot of touches, and then obviously he was trying to identify space in the backfield. So he was putting those little probe and grubber kicks through. He put a great crossfield kick in, obviously for Mac Hansen, which led to Jimmy O'Brien's try. So, it's not fair to compare like for like, because even though the line out against England was poor, we were getting a lot of possession from long kicks onto us, which we were able to deal with and go back at them. So, whereas against Samoa, there were contestables that if we were catching them, it's very difficult to launch anything. So, I would give Samoa more credit. I think what we saw the weekend with Samoa and Fiji, and the two really good performances, obviously Fiji got the result, was the benefit of having teams in the Super Rugby. So it's probably brought up the level of the local players. It's given them a more consistent high performance structure there. And then obviously being able to bring back the likes of Sapawanga, Luatua, etc. for the Samoa in particular, has given them real experience. We saw the impact James Ryan, Peter Manny had coming on, and the equivalent of those for us are those probably players who were ex-All Blacks who haven't been able to help them in World Cups previously because they've been other nations or tied. So I think that the Pacific Island nations will be back to being as competitive as they were kind of at the early days of professionalism, and that's a great thing. That's brilliant.
That is important to underline as well, Murray, when looking back over this game, because a lot of the uneasy feeling that I think Ireland fans would have had after that game might be connected to Ireland Italy in 2007 at Ravenhill, similar sort of a margin of victory in the end, and similar stutters. But it's rooted in history, this presumption that we can just show up and beat teams like Samoa. They're a different beast now, and beating them on Saturday, as poor performance as it was by Ireland, it's probably more the equivalent of beating almost an Italy now, or like maybe Argentina of yesteryear. Like, it's not a massive drop off to Samoa at all. It's a win, not a good win, but not a disgrace either, the way, say, that Italy game might have been seen as all of those years ago.
The edginess that's settling in amongst some Irish people as well is based on history around World Cups, and it's understandable. But the one thing is, the Ireland team themselves aren't getting edgy. As far as I can tell, they still remain calm, and maybe it'll be different if they get to a quarter final and they have to face up to that, or when they're playing Scotland in that final pool game and the pressure comes on. But they seem quite calm at the moment. It was their toughest warm-up game by some distance, and it was the best team they played in the warm-ups, probably by a distance as well. Samoa, and also I think this reflects Fiji and their phenomenal win. They were so disciplined, both of them. Fiji only conceded 7 penalties, Samoa 6. I think you could have maybe said Samoa, there was a few others there that Wayne Barnes missed on a night when he was certainly, I think, enjoying their performance. But there's a new edge of discipline there. Johnny Lacey actually was with them this week, the Irish referee who we've had on the pod before. And I think it helped because they'd been, as Birch mentioned, really disciplined the week before. They put a big focus on it again. Fiji have put a focus on that. It was one of the first things two of their players mentioned after one of the most historic wins. What a boring thing to mention by me and them, that their discipline was really good, and that's the key. We know that they can play with invention, with skill, with power in contact, and we saw glimpses from Samoa and absolutely examples of from Fiji. But now there's a maturity to how they're approaching it as well. Samoa were so diligent in sticking to their kicking game plan. It was boring, probably for them as well, but given the conditions and the errors they were drawing from Ireland, it actually made a lot of sense. And Fiji also have those structural, strong elements about them. And then on top of that, you've got set piece prowess from both of them. They've got good coaching teams, and the Samoan scrum at times was phenomenal. Paul Aloha-Emile, the Stade Francais tight head who worked with Paul O'Connell before, did some serious damage. Like, he buckled Healy. When Lockman came on, I think he gave him his wings at one stage. He had him up sideways, turned in. And that wasn't even the penalty. Like, it was frightening stuff. So they've got that quality. Their own lineout wasn't good, but Theo McFarland had a brilliant defensive lineout performance. And I know Birch will go into some of the deficiencies that Ireland had, and they probably gave him easy reads at times. But it's fantastic to see those sides of Samoa's and Fiji's game really standing out when they've got those strengths that we always knew were there as well. So way more complete package from both. And while Ireland, they were poor, and it's okay for us to say that, and it's okay for them to be poor actually in games as well. And they absolutely won't accept the poor performance. And it does point to the fact that their frontliners are so key in terms of mindset and standards and just execution. But they respected the opposition they played, and it's brilliant to see that Samoa are coming up to that level.
Birch, take us through Ireland's set piece deficiencies then.
Look, I think, yeah, even with Healy on, our scrum was under big pressure. I think it's a difficult night for Tom Stewart. It's the first setback I think I've seen him have. I think he's a phenomenal player, but again, he was someone who was told, the day before that he was playing. So that he was playing, but he wasn't going on to the World Cup, and
that's hard. Yeah. Like, just to emphasize that he's 22. It was his first test start. How hard must that have been? Like,
look, I think going into this in preseason, he wouldn't take a rocket science to work out. He needed something to happen to one of the people above him. Even though he was being excellent, he was always, in my mind, fourth choice. But then you see Kelleher struggle to get game time. Sheen comes off, and he's only human. He's obviously got to think, geez, maybe I have a chance here now. And then obviously he hears he's not going. And the first line out, I think Hendo probably should catch it. So it's a good throw. And then just as we started to look, some good defense from McFarland for sure. And then we just looked really jittery. And in fairness, that's not just down to him. That happened against England as well. So Paul has a lot of work to do. But I thought it was brilliant seeing how bringing Rob Herring on, seeing how the meshes at half time, being able to point out where the space is, and then we had a nice flow of possession. We started to maul them and take their legs away a little bit and play a little bit less risk. And it was actually a perfect scenario of something's going wrong here. How do we fix it? And because that's going to happen as well. I mean, we're not going to get everything on the front foot. For Stewart, I thought from a scrummaging point of view, he struggled to keep the Tongan or the Samoan tight head out, and that allowed him come in. So you see the most obvious example. Well, obviously Lockman getting his wings is another example. But when Healy got injured, he actually got twisted violently into the scrum and went kind of underneath the scrum. And again, you don't want to let the opposition tight head into that space, and that's not just a loose head v tight head. It's a loose head and hooker having to work hard together technically to be able to not allow that space to open up. So probably that was something, and it improved massively with Herring as the game went on. There was a couple of dodgy ones there, but I think Herring is a very good scrummager from what I understand. And yeah, it was a difficult one for Tom Stewart, but he's a phenomenally talented player, and at 22 years of age to be down there with everything going on in his mind as well. I mean, Jacob Stockdale obviously was told as well, but yet he gets a late chance to start, and he doesn't affect his performance, but he's a lot more experienced, So I wouldn't hold anything against Stewart for it, but in fairness, it was a combination of different things at the line out, I think, and then we just looked really jittery. We start thrown to the wrong areas. There's a couple of late lifts or missed lifts, and so it all wasn't his fault. But it didn't look good for him the way obviously Herring came on with Peter and stuff, and it just settled down. But I think, it didn't look good in terms of the stats. But when you look at actually the what happened, I think it's understandable that it got better and why it got better.